Hi, everybody. It's Jim Hamilton with Core Resonance. Glad to see you back, or I'm glad to be back, however that goes. This video is associated with Premise 11 of Core Resonance Colonies, the 12 premises of Core Resonance Colonies. This is Premise 11, the newsletter and video. This one is entitled The Work of J. Hamilton. It happens to be me. And I'm curious about whether I've really had fun writing about myself. The truth is, I think I have. Of course, 12 premises. I have to tell you, it all started out on a girlfriend's roof. I was fixing her skylight, and the whole concept of core resonance colonies came to me. I guess I was a little closer to the heavens. And I actually wrote the 12 premises, initially I think 10 or maybe 9. And I got the 10th one and then the 11th, and I thought there was going to be 12, and it ended up being 12. So this one is 11. The work of J. Hamilton. Well, it's curious because I don't do any work. I make everything up, everything. Now, it's true, I'm kind of plugged into the cosmos, so making stuff up is easy. I trap the cosmos on paper is what I claim that I do. And actually, one of the things I wanted to touch on in this 10 minutes is I do a lot of writing. I'm learning how to talk, learning how to speak. You don't get to edit as you go along. You have to kind of do it live and keep on going. But the point is that I write, and this is how I started. I write to the edges of what I know. In other words, when I write, first off, you have the world of catharsis of getting out of the surface of your mind and getting out of your surface and kind of working your way in. And so, frankly, when I wrote my first book, Visionaries Thrive in All Times, I journaled for 2 years. And then in that journaling, I gave myself a freedom very early on where I would say, "Good morning, Jim. We are pleased to speak with you." Now, it wasn't that I was channeling entities. It was that I was giving myself latitude to express myself any way I wanted. And so in speaking in a third person or a whatever that's called, I gave myself a lot of latitude. And so in journaling for 2 years, frankly, I got some very, very, very wild stuff, and I actually should turn that into a book. And I'll also hint to all of you out there that want to write, do your writing on the computer. Longhand is obsolete. The idea that your pen in your hand is better for your connection is garbage. Bullshit. It is not true. The keyboard works just as well, and the fun part is you can read what you wrote after you finish writing it. Even better than that, you have a good backup system. You can search, especially when you've written for 2 years. You can go back and find things much easier. Longhand, it all has to be translated. Don't do longhand. My point is, what I was talking about was, oh, I didn't start my timer, darn it, because I really kind of try to keep track of how long my talks go. Try to keep them short. My point is, when I write, especially in the early days, I used to write to the very edges of what I knew. And in writing to the very edges and describing and working with what I knew and kind of topping out with what I knew, what was next was right there. It was just as if I was scratching the ceiling and going through my own ceiling, and the cosmos was right there, willing and attempting to deliver information to me. And frankly, the works of J. Hamilton, that's how it all came about, with the exception of the fact, of course, that I started meditating when I was 23. I've now been meditating 40 years, and that has given me a great deal of insight. I also claim what I have what I call an uncommon amount of common sense, and tempering that with meditation is what gave me what I perceive as my edge and my connection that I choose and wish to share with people. One of the other things that I want to talk about real quick is I've come to discover that our nervous system is our center. I like to think of our nervous system as like a straw. It's a throughput mechanism. And what I mean by that is I believe that everything is a subset of God. Now, I don't traditionally use the term God a lot. I prefer the term innate intelligence, source, the divine, cosmos, People use universal mind. All of these terms are great. And of course, God's great, except there's a lot of preperception about what God looks like. And certainly it's a he, which is, way off track right off the bat. And so the point is that I come to discover, and it was through neurofeedback, that our nervous system is our center, that we are actually a means by which innate intelligence expresses through us. Frankly, everything is a means by which innate intelligence expresses. Everything in the mineral kingdom, everything in the plant kingdom, everything in the plant, animal, what's the other one? Plant, animal, and mineral kingdom, all three of them, and I'm sure there are more kingdoms. On this planet, we have three major kingdoms. And I also like to suggest the idea that minerals are alive. They're not like us at all. But think about how they each maintain their own distinct personality, identification, their own crystalline structure. If a piece of quartz breaks off in the ground, I'm sure it's true for many of the minerals, when they break or they split, they continue to grow. If you give a piece of quartz long enough, it'll grow new crystals where the break was. Now, what's curious to me about this whole thing is that all these minerals, it isn't one just big gray thing. There's, I don't know how many kinds of minerals there are on the planet, and I assure you they're alive, which actually we'll get into our next premise, 12th premise, which is that the planet itself is alive. If you think about everything being alive on this planet, everything being a means by which innate intelligence expresses, everything is alive. Everything's alive with spirit, if you will. When we come to that understanding, we discover that our neighbors, whether they be plants or they be animals or they be minerals, they're all our brothers. We're all the same. We're all part and parcel of a larger whole. And our ability to express that is what I discovered, i.e. our nervous system being our center. It's a mechanism by which, as we move out of resistance, we allow innate intelligence to express through us with less distortion. Unconditional love is not what we have toward each other. Everybody thinks unconditional love is a big grin on your face and peace and this and that. Well, that's all well and good, and it's all secondary to what unconditional love actually is. And I might add, in discovering and understanding the nervous system, I've come to understand unconditional love, and I've experienced over periods of time. What unconditional love is no resistance to your maker. No resistance to God. None. What we want to do is be a throughput mechanism for innate intelligence or God, or whatever you want to call it, to express through us with no distortion. See, that's the beauty. Think about a rose. A rose has a simple nervous system. Who would disagree? A rose has a simple nervous system, and it has no resistance, and therefore it expresses innate intelligence perfectly. The texture of the petals is beyond belief. The color is beyond belief. The fragrance is beyond belief. The thorns, what a contrast with thorns, and then the color of the stem, and just so much. I do a lot of salad making. Do you know that after you cut lettuce, it continues to grow? Aliveness is something really big. And so what we're learning about it, and we have to come to an understanding that we're part of something larger than ourselves. And in non-resistance, we move back into that state of being and allowing, for which I like to say we get the rides of our lives. I'll also say that reincarnation, let's see, ascension becomes the component of how we go forward. In other words, this planet is living, we're living. We have consciousness, we have unconsciousness, we have choice. As we become more conscious, as we learn how to re-enable our natural state of connection, as we learn how to reach back to what feeds us, as we learn how to become whole in partnership with something bigger than ourselves, we then come to have an identity. I would tell you that reincarnation is, I don't think it's very real. I think it's a misunderstood story. It's ancient. Um, and I think we go back to what we come from unless we become more. And in becoming more, in the process of ascension, we have an identity beyond this realm, and we continue to come and go and go on. There's a great deal to explore between the atoms and the neutrons and the protons and the size and the scale of the order that exists. So the work of J. Hamilton has been about self-discovery, my self-discovery. It's been about documenting what I've discovered. I've been very fortunate to have learned how to write. Writing is a very effective means of, actually it's an introspective expression. It's an introspective, it requires you to become quiet. It requires you to become internal. It requires you to pay attention, and instead of reacting to life, you're embracing your inner nature. And it's in the embracing of your inner nature that the discovery begins. So this 12th premise, pardon me, this 11th premise, the work of J. Hamilton, it's part of what I want to share with everybody. I want you to understand that that what I have discovered, the work that I am doing, what's important to me, one of the things I learned early on is that the things I think, other people think. As strange as I am, I'm not as strange as I think I am, because there's a lot of us. There's a lot of you out there. In fact, I say about a third of the population has nervous systems that are capable of quote unquote being turned on. And a better way to say that is we're conscious enough, our consciousness is close enough to the surface where overcoming or releasing or going beyond resistance as our fundamental nature is available to us. So about a third of the population is actually who I'm talking to. If you understand the concept of map of consciousness, one person at 700 on the map counteracts the negativity of 70 million people. One person at 600 counteracts the negativity of 10 million people. We discover that inner journey, that inner contemplation, that inner nature that we have to embrace, and that introspective component is extremely valuable. As we come to discover our very nature, as we come to discover that our nervous system is our connection, as we allow innate intelligence to flow through us, we become exponentially more contributive. That is how the world is going to turn around. I want to thank everybody for listening for just a minute. There's likes and dislikes and all the little things you can do with YouTube and all the different ways that you can share my information. I would appreciate if you do it. I'll be back in 2 weeks with the 12th premise, which is innate intelligence itself. I'm excited about writing it. I have little hints about how it's going to fire up and start off, and then it takes off. And I wish you peace. Namaste.